Welcome to our show, Candid Conversations.
I'm Ryan,
I'm Rory.
and we're here to talk candidly.
Candidly and openly
Yeah,
about anything and everything.
yeah. This past year has been an incredible ride for both of us, and I could say one of the things that got us here, or one of the things that helped us get here, was vulnerability and openness and connection. That's what this show is all about, right?
Absolutely. I've if you don't know much about us, a little backstory is, I struggled with drug addiction, very, very extreme drug addiction.
Yeah, it was bad. I was there.
And for 10 years, longer really, but the past 10 years were pretty excruciating on not only myself but everyone that was around me. I put people through a lot of hell, and this year I've found that, through the help of my brother and people that are close to me, that being open, being vulnerable, being real about what's going on, which was extremely difficult for me to do. But what I've seen and realized is that is the only way for me to get clean and sober, and to this point where I am right now, was to go through all of that. As painstaking as it was, as difficult as it was, but I had to. And I'm grateful because I had people there, like my brother, people close to me, that were there for me every step of the way, every week. So this is my brother, this is me, and here we are. We want to open the dialogue of just open up to what it all meant, what it all was, what everything was about.
Honesty is really the best policy. Being honest with ourselves, being honest with other people, even when being honest is tough.
Well, for
talking openly about drugs is not an easy thing, but it's what we need, right?
Yeah, and for a long time, honesty to me wasn't real honest. It wasn't real truth. I was convincing myself and telling myself things about my life, things that reinforced where I was, which was using drugs. So I didn't believe that I had a problem. Eventually, towards the latter part of that 10 years, I knew I had a problem.
Yeah.
But, and it got real bad. It got scary.
I got brewed up some chaga here.
Oh, yeah. I love chaga.
Fresh forage from our buddy Tom. Shout out to Tom.
Thank you, Tom. I never had chaga before this year. I actually wasn't really aware of what it was. But it's a fungus, a mushroom?
Yeah.
Or something. I don't know if it's some mushroom. It's like a type of mushroom,
But chaga with a little bit of maple syrup is one of the best drinks ever, and incredibly healthy.
It's really hot.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's like a drinkable version of maple syrup.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like an enjoyable.
The chaga has a little bit of that mapley flavor to it because it comes from the trees.
Yeah.
Well, it mainly comes from birch trees, but it still has that.
But it has the sugars and that.
Yeah, the sweetness to it.
Yeah.
So where should we start?
You can ask me anything, and I'll ask you the same, man. That's the beauty about doing this and having the internet, is we can say and put out whatever we want.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what I admire about Joe Rogan. I don't really admire much about him, but that's one thing I do admire about him.
Yeah. Is
that he can really just say anything, do anything, he puts it out there.
Yeah.
What are you lighting up?
It's a little San Paulo. Smells great.
Yeah, I love it.
And what we're really all about is rituals. That's that's what got us here in a lot of ways. I mean, there's a lot of things that got us here, but rituals were incredibly important. And we started our first ritual I think it was about 8 months ago now. And the first day, I remember the first time I came up to you and Tom and our other friend, and I was like, we should just go out in the woods, and try and get to an altered state and feel, and just, because I knew altered states, I knew they were valuable for the perspective that they gave, right?
Yeah, you also knew, you came into that knowing the power of sitting and feeling those emotions that we need to feel.
I mean, I learned that from my first psychedelic experience with the mushrooms, where I guess that's, really where it all started.
We should talk about psychedelics because we both do pretty openly.
Yeah, I mean, they're an important piece to the puzzle. But
right.
That's all they are. They're a piece, They're not the whole thing. And
of course not.
And they're not inherently good either. They can cause tremendous destruction if not utilized correctly.
Yeah, psychedelics bring up a lot of fear. That can go one of two ways. But
we've experienced our share of that.
For sure. A little bit of backstory. So I know I already explained that I was doing.
Well, let me just say one thing.
Sure, go for it.
I was depressed ever since, coming out of high school, going to college. I lost my main group of friends, and I got really depressed, and I didn't know how to make other friends. And I became really lonely, dropped out of college, tried the pharmaceutical model, was on Adderall, Prozac, benzos. It's interesting that the Adderall became, the one that was prescribed, which was the Adderall, became the most destructive relationship I had with any substance. But I got to a point where I was so depressed I didn't know what to do. I was desperate. I went to a neurologist, took some tests. She told me that my brain was nothing wrong with it. And I remember leaving the doctor's office feeling more hopeless than ever because I wanted her to find something wrong.
Right.
I wanted her to find a chemical imbalance, or
you wanted a reason for why you were feeling the way you were feeling.
Yeah, and I got no answers, which left me feeling like, what am I supposed to do? I'm on my own, and it was made me feel pretty hopeless in the moment, but it also empowered me because I felt, okay, now there's no excuses. This is all up to me. If I'm going to overcome my depression and my problems, it's going to be because of me. And if I don't, it's going to be because of me too. And
yeah,
I left the neurologist and I went home and I started researching alternatives. And I came across plants, but then I came across some studies by Robin Carhart Harris it was actually a TED Talk on your brain on psilocybin, and it showed these neural network pathways that are normally very rigid. I don't know if you've seen this image, but we can put it up. It's the image of the rainbows of the
fMRI
colors. No, this is actually a little different.
Okay.
This is it's just like a circle that shows different colors going to different nodes, kind of.
Right, in your brain.
Yeah.
Different.
And then I think they got it from an fMRI, but and then it shows it on psilocybin, and the pathways are just way more robust and more free communication. And I saw that and I was like, maybe this could be what I had needed. And I ended up ordering some spores and growing my own mushrooms. And I didn't know what I was doing. And I literally got enough for one dose. It was, all of my mushrooms died before they got fully grown. They aborted. And so I took up all the aborts, which was about 1 gram total. And they're all these little tiny things. And I took them all because I didn't think they would really have much effect. But they did have a very profound effect. That was the first psychedelic I ever took, and I was 23 years old, because the propaganda of you're going to lose your mind worked on me. Like, I was terrified of going crazy. And that's still what has been my biggest fear. And it's interesting, but I think, like, well, after that, I took that 1 gram and I laid in bed and I had a very pleasant time for about 2 hours, just chilling, thinking the most amazing thoughts and just having a amazing time. And then all of a sudden, you know, I was out. I kept thinking of this thought that I thought was so profound. And I think it's a cool thought, but, like, I just couldn't let it go. Mm-hmm. This idea that, like, of evolution, really. I was thinking of how serotonin and psilocybin are so similar. Maybe they're built on the same genetic blueprints, you know, evolutionary blueprints. And I kept repeating this over and over in my head, like, hundreds of times. I couldn't stop. And this is common in psychedelic experiences. People get stuck in a cycle. And next thing I know, I come out of this stupor. I'm laying on my bed. I'm drooling on myself. And I felt like it's been about 5 minutes. I look at my alarm clock, and it's been over an hour and a half. And I realized, actually, I didn't realize then, but eventually I realized that I was just in a pure catatonic state, just out of it. Like, my body was there, but there was no one home. And I jumped out of bed, and I was terrified. I literally didn't know what to do, but my body says, run, you're in danger. So I literally jump out of bed, run to the bathroom, look in the mirror, and say, what do I do? I'm going crazy. Should I call my mom? Should I call the ambulance? Should I wake up one of my roommates? What do I do? And that was the scariest moment of my life up until that point. But there was this one intuitive feeling in my gut that said, you're okay, you know, you're going to get through this. And the next 5 days, I had the worst existential anxiety of my life. I kept thinking in my head, I screwed up something. I can never go back. My brain will never be the same. I've created all this anxiety, and I will have to deal with this anxiety my whole life. But as I sat with that for the 5 days, crippling anxiety, couldn't get out of bed, I realized that this anxiety wasn't new, and the mushrooms didn't give it to me. It's anxiety I've always had and I've always repressed. The mushrooms just revealed it. The mushrooms pretty much took all my barriers down, just dropped all my barriers and forced me to look at this. And it was exactly what I needed, because in that moment I wanted so badly to go and rely on my old coping mechanisms of distraction, of video games, smoking cannabis and tobacco, drinking. I was taking this other substance called kratom.
And Adderall you were taking beforehand.
And Adderall. And in that moment, I stopped everything. And not only was I going through the existential anxiety, I was also going through withdrawals from all of that. And that was incredibly hard 5 days. But on that 5th day, it was one of the best days I ever had in my life. I remember I finally felt free from my anxiety. Well, not completely free, but I finally felt like that anxiety had been resolved, most of it, and transformed. I walked out into my kitchen and just bawled, got on my knees and just cried, tears of joy, like I'd been given a second chance in a lot of ways. And then, I still didn't know what the hell I was doing then, but it made me realize what I was doing wasn't the right thing, you know? Not that it was wrong, good, right or wrong, but it just wasn't what I wanted. I realized that I was depressed because of my actions and my choices. And that is it can either be the most liberating thing in the world, or it can be the most overwhelming and hard to deal with.
I think it's overwhelming either way.
Yeah, it is.
It's an overwhelming idea.
I think something me and you have always struggled with is responsibility. Like we've all had this deep fear of responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And that there's no more responsibility than understanding that your actions do have an effect.
And that they're all 100% in your control.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the default mode network, it's like, that's a thing. And that is kind of like how we operate on a daily basis.
It's like a amalgamation of all of your decisions up until that point. And your brain will take the path of least resistance, which is the path that has traveled the most in the past.
Right.
And that's why changing a habit is so incredibly hard. But that's where it all started, you know. And then
so then how long ago was that? That was 2.5. That was probably 3 years ago.
It was about 3 years ago, yeah.
All right. 3 years to me, that's so much has happened in 3 years, but so little at the same time. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So what I'm saying is, okay, so like 3 years ago you had that experience, and then what changed?
Well, like literally what changed in my life, like physically, is I stopped all those substances. I was like manic to a point, though. I remember going up to you and Dad and saying, I'm never going to drink again. I'm never going to do any substance again.
I remember that.
Because I remember feeling like I saw the answer. I don't need to go back. But I was missing the answer, really.
Right.
I was getting like this important message, but I was kind of misinterpreting it.
100%.
But what happened was on that fifth day when I started to feel good, I had a dream that night. And this is the only dream that I can really think of that had a significant impact on my life. But I had a dream of doing, being in like a psychologist office, and it had this very psychedelic vibe to it. I don't know how to explain it, but I woke up that morning and I realized if I want to do anything in the realm of psychedelics and mental health, and that's really what I wanted to do. I realized if I could help myself overcome depression, then I could help other people overcome depression.
Wow. That's
all I wanted to do. And that morning I re-enrolled in school. I never expected to go back to college.
Right, you had dropped out. Yeah. And I remember you saying,
I wrote it off because I thought they're just trying to squeeze me of their money, you know? I thought it was so fucking capitalistic and I thought they were taking advantage of me. And in a way, you know, they are. But you're also taking advantage of them, you know? It is reciprocal.
Right.
And the thing is, I didn't have any other path. So if I could commit to finishing college, because that was always my hardest thing since I was a kid, committing to something and finishing it.
Yeah.
Because I got an obsessive personality, and I go all in on one thing, and then just before I'm about to like fail at that, I find something else to go all in at. So I never have to commit fully to anything, because that's that fear of commitment and responsibility. Mm-hmm. If I commit 100% to one thing, then 80 years down the road, what if it's the wrong thing, you know? Right. And that's never the case, but it feels like that in the moment, you know? What if I pick the wrong thing?
Right.
But yeah.
So you re-enrolled in college
Yep.
after a psychedelic experience and having a dream afterwards that was very influential.
Yeah.
What, a year and a half later you graduated from college?
Yeah, about 2 years later I graduated. Well, maybe it was a year and a half. I took a lot of summer classes. I just wanted to get it done as quick as possible.
That's cool, man.
Just wanted to get through it.
So you finished your college degree.
Yeah, and that was like one of the...
That was just last year, I remember, because...
Yeah.
Oh, man, it's crazy. But so you had that idea that you want to help people. Saying it back, it's going to sound crazy, but like you had this idea that you want to help people that have depression and mental health issues.
Yeah.
You never forced it upon me to take a psychedelic. You suggested it could help. You said it could help a lot and that it has helped you.
I knew it had the potential, you know.
Right.
And I wanted you to take it because I saw how much you were struggling.
But I was so against it.
Yeah.
I had no faith in it. I was like, I've done psychedelics. You know, in high school I'd done not a bunch, but I'd done it here and there. I'd done LSD. I'd done psilocybin. So in my mind, it was like...
But the thing is, Rose, that's where it goes back to like the first lesson that I misinterpreted. It wasn't about the psychedelic. It was about what the psychedelic allows us to access. which is this deeper connection, this deeper feeling.
Yes,
and the reason
yes.
I don't think you believed in the psychedelics as much as you believed in me. And eventually, like, you had a lot of reluctance to first try ayahuasca. But when you did, let's tell us about, your first experience with ayahuasca. This was about a year after mine, or 2? No, this was like 2 years.
It's like 2 years after, because it was about a year ago today. Not today, but a year and a month ago.
Yeah, last Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it was last Thanksgiving, and I remember I was using drugs more heavily than I had ever before in the past 10 years. I mean, I could go into detail, but I don't know if there's need. I'll just leave it at this. I was shooting more drugs in my body than I'd ever seen anyone do before, even on camera. It's just I don't know how to, like, it's emotional, but
yeah,
it's tough to say that. But so all right, so I'm doing more drugs, and I remember thinking about the ayahuasca. This was about a week before I took the ayahuasca the first time. I remember thinking to myself, because a good friend of mine actually asked me, "Do you think that you'll ever get off drugs?" And I hesitated, and then I kind of lied to her. But I didn't really. I said, I hope. I have that hope. I still have that hope that I can get off drugs. But deep down, I didn't think I would. I didn't think I'd ever get off methadone, let alone heroin or any and the cocaine and all the drugs that I was doing. And about a week after having that thought that I don't think I'll ever get off of it, I'm introduced to this ayahuasca. It's a brew that you drink, right? And it was like it's weird because ayahuasca is supposed to kick in like 45 minutes.
Yeah, I remember I was sitting with you for like...
I was sitting at least 2 hours.
2 hours, yeah.
Almost
like,
3.
I'm like, you feel anything? You're like, nah.
Nah.
And I remember leaving your bedroom and thinking, like, I was down. I was like, man, I failed him, kind of, like... And it wasn't really me. It was just like, this was it, this was the thing, It was...
Maybe that's what you had to let go of, because as soon as you walked out the door, it hit me.
That's funny.
It hit me hard. Yeah. But it hit me subtly, gently, and perfectly. Like, the thing with psilocybin I don't want to get into like a whole debate, but there's something about the ayahuasca, man. It's just like perfect what you need. Like, the psilocybin is like a little... anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself, but you left. I was watching this thing on who are the MMA brothers from... I forget their names.
Talk about set and setting. This was it, right? Nah, I'm kidding. But. Well,
I was watching it. It doesn't matter. I don't have to get too into it. But basically, I had this realization: like, this professional athlete, he's an MMA fighter. He lives his life the way he sees it, the way he wants to. He fights. He puts all of his effort into that. That was inspiring. It's like his day off, he goes to the gym, to a cryogenic like tank, just to like relax. You know what I mean? It's like, that was inspiring. So anyway,
you came downstairs.
Yeah, I came downstairs, and
I remember we were all sitting at the dinner table. It was me, our brother, our mom and dad,
and
Mary, my wife,
and your daughter,
and my daughter. Yeah, she was just like 2 or 3 days old.
She was like I think she was 2 days old.
Yeah. And you come down, and I notice a different energy about you immediately. I'm like, okay, he's feeling it. And I was worried, I was worried because it's like, our Thanksgivings are not stress-free times.
No.
They're usually just like, oh man, it's not the ideal.
Holidays at our house are just something else. Like, they're just...
Everyone is ready to... You'd
think holidays would be about de-stressing, but this is, our house is the opposite. But that Thanksgiving was like probably the least stressful Thanksgiving we've ever had.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oddly enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you came down and you sat next to our older brother, and I was expecting like, they always get into it. You know, you two always get into it, start arguing about something. I'm like,
Do
this is gonna get bad quick. But you were just so calm and collected, and you're just accepting, like that, just accepting of everything and grateful of everything, no matter what. And one thing you said a lot after that was like, even if we're going through hell, I'd be grateful for it. Even if we're going or even if we're arguing, I'm grateful that we have that chance to argue.
Right.
And
That's ultimately what the ayahuasca showed me. It's like
it's a powerful lesson.
It's a powerful lesson. It showed me like, be grateful for everything.
Yeah.
Everything. Like down to the atoms of what we are. You know what I mean? Like that's hard concept to understand, but like be grateful for everything. And it took a lot of hard work over the past year. So that was a year and a month ago. Yeah. And today
wait.
Yeah.
Let's not jump the gun.
No, let's not jump the gun. Let's get right into it.
After that, you stopped using all illicit substance immediately. And the next day...
I was using heroin every single day for 6 months prior.
Yeah.
Every single day. In 10 years before. But I mean every day for 6 months. And then I had the ayahuasca experience. I stopped using the day after.
And then...
I didn't go back to it until...
Well, and you also started going down on your methadone because you were at what, like 160?
Yeah, I was on a high dose. I think it was 120 at that point. It was. That's still a very high dose.
It is a high dose.
So the next day, or like, I don't know if it was the next day, but within the next couple of weeks, we're talking a lot. Like my whole energy has changed, right? Like I don't know. You might think I was manic.
I did think you were manic.
Okay. I think a couple people did, but
I was happy to see it because it was kind of like you've been repressing all of your motivation your past 10 years, and now you have all this motivation and you're ready to make some changes, and it was so good to see.
Yeah, I kind of felt like a kid again. Like all my
I know that
dreams and potentials could be a reality depending on how far I want to go.
Yeah. How
far I'm willing to take that.
Yeah.
A year later, look where we are. I mean, I'm so grateful for... Again, we're jumping the gun.
So after that, you were at 120 on your methadone. How fast did you taper down?
So 120 milligrams. The doctor told me straight up, like, that should take at least like a year, if not 2 years, to get off of it. And I was like, I understand, but I want to get off like right now, like as soon as possible.
And what did he say to that?
He was like, all right, well, there's like a 99% chance that you're just going to be back on methadone, or like a 90% chance that you're going to be back on methadone, a 5% chance that you're going to overdose and die, and a 5% chance that you'll get clean.
Yeah.
Like actually get clean. Like that was the statistics of people at that point in their life saying, I just want to get off.
I mean, I remember I came with you to the methadone clinic one day, and the doctor actually allowed me to come in, which was like very unorthodox. He said he can't come in, but you said, I'm not going to take my methadone unless you let my brother come in.
Wild, right?
Yeah.
Wild.
And I just kind of sat and watched, but I mean, the people, they're good-hearted. They're just afraid you're going to die. Yeah. It's that simple because they've seen it, they've been in that. But I was with you, and I'm like, the man says he doesn't want his methadone. What are you gonna do? I mean, you literally said, like, what are you gonna do? I can just drink half of it. You can't make me drink it all.
Right? Yeah, I was at that point.
Yeah,
because I'd been in the methadone clinic for 7 years at that point, and they don't treat you well. I mean, they treat you like drug addicts.
Yeah.
So at that point, it was like, what am I gonna? He's gonna trust a drug addict, and of course not. So I had to kind of be like, look, I'm not going to take it. So anyway, we have that meeting, and then. So I go down from 120 milligrams down to 1 milligram in about, I think it's like 2.5 months, really. 2.5 months, I go, which is extremely rapid taper, extremely fast.
Would you say you had the structure to, because what's happening as you're going down on that, like as these barriers that you have built up, as you stop relying on them, what's happening to you emotionally?
Right. Well, physically, psychologically, emotionally, I'm feeling more.
Exactly.
Feeling more of things that I didn't want to feel. That's why I was using drugs. I didn't want to feel those things, you know. The most difficult part about it wasn't even the physical withdrawal, which was really not fun. It was really awful. It was the emotions that come with it.
Talk about it.
Well, you know, I mean, you know what, fear. It's just like, you know, it's about my past. It's about
guilt and shame and what could have been.
And there's so much. I mean, 10 years I've been doing, you know, opiates, but longer than that I've been doing drugs and doing things that I knew weren't in my best interest. So it's like all of a sudden I don't have to, but over time I'm starting to feel and kind of relive those things in my head. You know what I mean? It's kind of like what happens when you start to...
Well, it's like, I always think of it as like when we repress these emotions, and you can do it through drugs, you can do it through distraction of anything, just taking yourself out of the moment. You're not resolving the emotions, you're just pushing them, sweeping them under the rug. And
right.
Eventually, you're going to have to, you know, look under that rug and deal with that shit.
Right.
But for you, like 10 years of that, when you stop taking that methadone and all of that shit comes out, that is incredibly unbearable. And if you're trying to do it alone, and this goes back to where I said I misinterpreted the lesson of my first trip, whereas I thought I could do it alone. And that's what I tried to do. I tried to change every habit of my life. I literally started waking up at like 6 a.m., playing music, or trying to learn the piano, meditating, doing yoga, doing art, all this shit. I just started doing it. I was like, I can just do this on my own. And all of those habits fell apart and left me deeper in a hole than even before. 3 months after that, my first experience, I started drinking again, and then every habit fell away, and I got more depressed than I've ever been in my life. And it was because I felt like I had missed an opportunity. I'd been given a second chance, and I squandered it. And it was because I didn't have a support structure and a connection where I could truly build upon. You know, I was only focused on myself, building up myself. But, like, what good is that if I'm not making the people around me their life better as well, and making...
Yeah, maybe you felt something like from deep within that, like, you're getting better, or you see the possibility for you to get better, but what about my brother? What about the people around me? I don't know if you thought about that much.
Yeah. I mean...
I don't know.
I just realized, like, what eventually we came to realize was that it's truly... The path to transformation is about connection. Connection with each other, connection with ourselves and our emotions, feeling everything. And
so back to the little methadone story. I got down to 1 milligram, and then I relapsed because the emotions and the physical withdrawal was too much to handle. So I relapsed. I used heroin again for about 2 weeks.
I'll tell you that
this was back in April of this year, April 2020.
Those 2 weeks were the hardest, like, emotional weeks of my life. I remember Evie was a few months old. Me, my daughter, my wife were all living under the same roof with you and mom and dad, and I thought that this was like a turning point. Like, this was a crux, you know, like, it's either going to go one way, which is we pretty much excommunicate you in a way. Like, the things you said to us and did to us, if you were not my brother, I would never talk to you again. Like, in a way. But because I knew deep down who you were, that I knew you weren't that person that you were projecting, because I grew up with you, I know you, I trusted you, you know, still.
Yeah, I wonder what that's all about. Like, why was I acting in a way that seemed like it wasn't me? I think I was scared.
I think it was fear, yeah.
I think I was scared. I think I was extremely scared. In that 2 weeks that I started using again, I overdosed 2 times.
Yeah. And you were revived by Narcan.
By Narcan both times.
And I remember that was actually the second time you overdosed was in our house, and this was after the second week of our ritual that we started. And the first week of the ritual was great. You know, we went out there, we did our thing. We knew that it was going to bring up, we were going to have to confront a lot of our shit by doing it.
Yeah. I felt so much power from that first meeting.
Yeah.
I felt so great afterwards. I was like, I remember saying things. I remember we took a 10-minute pause where we stayed silent. And I remember thinking of things real young when I was young. Things that were like embarrassing, and I talked to him about them after, and I was like, I don't know why. I was like, why did I talk about that? But it makes sense. It's like that's something that was embarrassing and difficult, like traumatic for me to deal with when I was younger.
Never dealt with it. You know?
And I didn't, and I was so glad. I was so, like proud of myself. I was like, I talked about something that I've maybe thought about a couple times over the past, my adult life. Probably not even.
Yeah, that was an amazing feeling.
Yeah,
but then, when the second week was coming around, because we committed to doing this every week, we almost didn't go the second week because it was like
kind of
rainy, and Tom was like, I don't know if you guys want to do this kind of rainy, and you were even unsure about it. I'm like, we are doing this, we're not backing out now. I knew this was when it was going to get good, in a way, or bad, whatever you want to say.
Well, it definitely got, definitely changed. A lot of things changed.
How'd that second week? Tell me how you felt.
I remember where we were sitting in our little circle.
It was the triangle of the three of us.
Yeah, me, you, and Tom.
Yeah.
And I remember doing our little ritual, doing what we do.
Yeah.
And then it's time for us to stay quiet. We do try to 5, 10, 15 minutes if it comes to that, where we stay very quiet and just sit with our thoughts.
Meditate in silence.
Meditate. Yeah. I was just a couple minutes in, and I don't remember exactly if you looked at me.
I looked at you, and I just saw terrified, just fear looking back at me, and I knew you had to say something. I knew you couldn't.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want to say anything, but deep down, there's no escape. It was weird. It was like there was no escaping it.
Yeah.
It was like I was transparent, but I don't
see right through, and I could see the emotion on you more clearly than anything.
Yeah, and then as soon as I started talking, I think I just was like, I'm planning to use heroin tomorrow morning. I had already ordered it, and I was getting it, delivered the next morning. And I think the shame and guilt and all that stuff from that setting goes much deeper than just the fact that I wanted to use the next day. I think it was a culmination of everything. And I think the idea of using the heroin, like in that setting, I didn't want to use the heroin. I felt perfectly, I felt really good that I was with you guys after we had already talked, after I expressed that I was going to use the next day. And I went home thinking, I don't need to. But then the next morning I wake up and I'm right back to that, habitual mind state where it's like, the first thing I did when I woke up was went and got those drugs.
Yeah. Because, the reason you...
Because we had talked. I told you, I'm getting drugs delivered. I will let you hold it. I will let you...
I was supposed to intercept it in the morning.
Right. But I woke up extra early, just not even consciously, just like my brain was... I woke up and I went and got it, and I did a little bit. You were still sleeping.
You know what I woke up to? I woke up to in bed, daughter and wife right beside me, and I hear mom shout, "Rory," and I woke up to the sound of Rory, and I knew exactly what had happened. And I jumped out of bed, ran into your room, and I saw you there, Rory. Oh my God, man! I thought you were dead. I just straight up thought you were dead. And in that moment, I walk in your room, and I'm just pacing back and forth, and it was like a life without you flashed in front of my eyes, and I knew that's not the life I want. And next thing I know, I wasn't even really thinking, just jumped on your bed, got on top of you, grabbed you. I said, "Rory, come back," and when I said that, I felt okay. even though you had no signs of coming back, I believed in you, and you did come back, and man, you opened your eyes, and you didn't. It's just
What?
well, I mean, like the first thing I see is just the whites of your eyes because your pupils are in the back of your head, but then your eyes focus on me, and the pupil goes from tiny to huge.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was like you saw me,
Yeah.
and I don't know.
I was in so much pain.
Yeah, I know. It's insane because
I was kicking and screaming.
yeah,
It
and
felt.
you wanted to use immediately.
I say it's the Narcan, but I think the physiological effect of the Narcan, but I think it was also the shame and the guilt and everything just compiled into that one moment where I was back.
Yeah.
Felt like it literally, like people say, it feels like you're getting hit with a sledgehammer. Like,
I never understood what that felt like or meant until that moment. It felt like my head was getting slammed
just repeatedly with like a sledgehammer.
And I can understand why you'd want heroin after that to take that away.
Right. Well, I was in so much pain. I was like, I need it. I was
Yeah.
like, there's no way I'm not doing it. I need it. And you guys
We sat with you,
sat with me.
and
I got through it eventually. It took a while, but eventually I calmed down enough where I was still on edge, but, I had just almost died, so it makes sense that I'm still on edge. But
what happened later that day, though?
I think I used.
yeah, definitely.
You did, and
I know.
you told me that you kind of had that feeling of like near death or something.
When I used it again, right, I had
I could just
there was
tell,
just something about it. It was like I don't want that. Like, I'm just going right back to kind of where I just was, which is choosing drugs, which is choosing death.
I think, yeah, I mean,
And I remember like just having this pit in my stomach, like
yeah, you're throwing up a lot.
throwing up a lot, and yeah. And then after that, I came up to you, I think.
Yeah, I could just tell
And
you were just terrified, so scared
Yeah.
of everything. But I think scared of death. It's ironic that the more scared of death you are, the more you create death. But I think it's very true.
Yeah, I mean,
Scared
I
of
think
life.
I'm also scared of life. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
I'm ultimately that's what I was afraid of, even more than death.
yeah.
Um,
But that time when you after that,
Right.
you used again. You
Yeah.
came to me
Yeah.
and you said, I think I need to go to rehab."
Yeah.
It's the first time I ever heard you say that out of your mouth. And at first, I didn't even
it's
want
the
to
first
talk
time
to you.
I ever said it in my life. I mean, I've been to rehab before, but it was the first time that I actually consciously was like, I need to go to rehab.
And you said that while you were high too. So I was like,
So you didn't believe it?
not really.
Yeah.
But I didn't even want to talk to you when you were high. I remember
Yeah.
telling you, like, if I'm going to be open and real with you, you can't be on drugs because you're putting up a defense and I'm trying to be lower defenses,
Yeah, I get that now. I see. I've talked to
But in that
people
moment,
since then, and
I get that, like 100%.
but that was the realest I've ever seen you, like on heroin before,
Yeah.
Like it still wasn't good to see, of course, but I felt hopeful when you said I want to go to rehab.
Yeah.
And
so
then-
then what happened?
We called rehab facilities. You did all that your work yourself. Did all the legwork, and the earliest they could get you in was Friday.
so it was like
It was 3 days,
3 days after I had used.
and we agreed that you would give me all the extra heroin that you had,
So it was like 4 days, but yeah,
and I would hold on to it.
right.
And every day that week, every night, it was the same thing. You came to me, asked for it. We started, discussing it. You said, "There's no way I'm going to say no. Just give it to me now. You can't talk me out of this." And we'd talk for like hours and hours and hours. And eventually you would say no. But the last day, there was something different about it,
Yeah.
because it wasn't, the more we said no, you shouldn't, the more you wanted it.
Yeah.
And we did that. We went on to that for like 3 hours, and eventually Mom and Dad left, and it was just me and you. And I was like, if you're gonna do this, then I'm gonna sit there and watch, and you're gonna see the effect that it has on me.
Right.
And if you want that, if you want to see that, I'll go get it for you. And you said, okay, go get it.
Yeah.
And as I got up to walk and get it, I heard you say something. I don't even know what it was.
I don't remember.
But
Just something
I was like,
normal.
what? And you're like, I don't need it. And man, that was the biggest relief I've ever felt in my life. Because I knew that you were strong enough. I mean, I always knew you were strong enough. It was just like, I knew that you were dedicated in this moment. And I knew that you cared about me, you know? And I think ultimately that decision has to be our own, you know? And that's why I think, like, with the ayahuasca, I had these expectations on you. And when I left the room, that's when it took effect. Or when, in this scenario, when I say, okay, I'll give you the drugs, that's when you say, no, I don't need them.
Right,
you know?
and for hours previously, I was pushing to. There was no way I was going to say no.
Yeah.
I remember that day. I was 100% determined. I said, if you're not going to get it for me, I'll go out on the street and get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember it. And then you going up, finally giving in, finally, you know. And I was just like, no, just no.
Man.
I can't do that.
It's so beautiful reminiscing on this, because it seems like it's just not real in a way.
Yeah.
But I remember that was one of the best nights ever, because I gave you a big hug, and you said, all right, I'm going to go to bed. You went upstairs. You told Dad you're not using, and he shot up out of his chair, gave you a huge hug, you know, most genuine I've ever seen you guys. Same thing with Mom. And then right when you were about to go to bed, I said, thanks, Rory, you're my hero. And I walked into the bathroom, and I cried, man. I cried so much, and it felt good, you know? It felt great. But it just felt like, I don't know, like I mattered, that we mattered, that like what I'm doing, you care about, you know, you believe in me, I believe in you. It's just this feeling of deep connection with someone, and how that like makes you feel unstoppable. And then the next day you went to rehab.
Yeah, I went to rehab, and
it was a Sunday too.
No, it was a Friday.
Oh, you're right.
I remember.
Yeah.
I went there, and I took my methadone that morning because I took it out. I had doses for home, so I took my take-home dose, and then I went in because I didn't want to start the withdrawal that day. At this point, I'm on 15 milligrams. So when I relapsed, I went from 1 milligram back to 15. Didn't keep me off the drugs, but eventually, you know, I had the overdose, and I came to the realization I need to do this myself. So I checked myself into rehab, and
the plan was just cold turkey off everything, right?
Yeah. So first day I go in, I took my dose because I had a take-home dose at home that morning. But the second day I was there was the first day that I woke up at the rehab, and I didn't take my dose that day. Which the story on that was interesting because everybody. Like, there was, like, 5, other patients at the rehab that I knew. At that point, I didn't really know, but some of them I knew. But they're all like, you need to get your methadone, And then 2 clinicians also come in at different times. I was sleeping, you know. They come in like, you need to get your methadone. So I'm finally like, all right, I get it. They're not, like, saying you have to take it, but they're just saying, come on, we got to go. It's time to go.
Yeah.
So I put my clothes on, and I get up real quick, and I get in the van, and as the clinician, and I'm the only one at this point. I think it was so late in the day because it was early in the morning, but I was still sleeping, and they go real early to the methadone clinic, and I wasn't there I didn't go with them the first one because I was sleeping. They said, okay, we'll bring you. You have to go. Let's go. And I get in the van, and the clinician's driving me. We get like 3 minutes down the road. It's like a 20-minute drive there. We got 3 minutes down the road, and I'm like, please turn around. I can't take my methadone today. Like, I told myself I wasn't going to. I told her, the reason I'm here is to not take the methadone. But there was like, when I woke up in a haze, and everyone was like, you got to take your methadone. I was like, okay, you know?
Yeah.
So she turned around, and I got back, and everyone, you know, people there were like, oh, good job, you know, that's great. But they were still kind of like, they're like, why didn't you take your methadone? They thought I was crazy. I'm insane because I didn't want to take methadone.
Yeah.
Which, you know, makes sense in that setting. You're in rehab. Everybody there is pretty much doped up on either methadone or Suboxone.
I remember when we called you, you were at rehab, or maybe you called us. We were at the ritual, me, Tom, and Dad came because...
Yeah, I called you.
Yeah.
I called you guys.
Dad came to take your spot because he knew it was important to you and to us, and we had you on the phone there, and we're talking to you.
So this is like...
The next day, or was it the same? I thought it was the same day.
No.
But it was the next day. Because it was Sunday. That happened on Saturday.
You know what? I think I did take my methadone this first day I was there. I think I went there and I took it on Saturday. So then the day after. So I went...
Yeah.
Okay, so it was a Sunday. It was a Sunday that this happened where I said turn around. So at that point I'd already taken the methadone there once. Why not do it again, you know? But I was like, please turn around.
And it was that Sunday ritual, you know?
And you
called in, and...
I wasn't even, like, conscious of it. Oh, my God, it's Sunday. They're out there doing that. You know, I just didn't want to take it. And and then at that, I wanted to call you guys. I wanted to tell you guys, look, these guys are all about me taking methadone. And that seems weird to me. Like, and this is supposed to be a place where I should be able to detox. And, you know, and it ultimately it was. But
yeah.
So I called up you guys and...
Man, when you told me that story, I... I've never felt so empowered in my life. Like, truly, like, holy shit, we're doing this, you know. Like,
I was so happy and grateful and filled with joy to hear that you guys were out there doing that.
Yeah, that was a magical time. I mean, every week's been magical, but that was great. And
so anyway, so now it's December 28, 2020, and the last time that I used heroin was
2020, 2019, you mean?
No, right now it's December 28, 2020.
Oh, right.
Right now. Right. December 28. And haven't used any opiates since, and I don't know. I feel better than I have in a long time.
Yeah.
It's been a wild ride this year. So much.
How many weeks have we been doing this now? The ritual.
Well, our first day doing it was April 19.
We've done it every week.
Every single week.
Except I missed one.
And I missed one.
And you missed one. And our lives have all transformed. Me, you, and Tom. Dramatically. I mean, it's helped us all overcome addictions in our own lives.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. There's something so unique and special and serene about doing what we're doing because it's in our hands. It's not, I don't know.
It's created by us from within, you know. It's not something we adopted externally.
Right, exactly.
It evolved naturally, organically over time. The first week we did it looks completely different to now.
Oh,
but
yeah.
It all developed exactly how it needed to, you know, naturally.
Right. It's just about trusting the process or trusting yourself, really.
And we talked about that.
I remember on day one, we were in the ritual, I remember saying, so like I had the idea of like, okay, I just have to trust in something else. But my question is like, what else are we trusting in? If we're not trusting in ourselves, what else is there to trust in? But I think ultimately it is our trusting in ourselves. It's trusting in like the intuition.
The intuition. It's also the present moment.
Yeah, just trusting in like that's tough. That's the toughest thing too. Is like trusting that everything's okay right now.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
and that feeling this incredibly intense thing will be valuable.
Right.
Like we always in the past push fears away because we don't want to be overwhelmed with fear all the time. You know, it doesn't seem productive at all. But what we've learned in this setting, when it's a safe place to feel whatever we need to, you know, we can feel the most intense feelings of our life, accept them, and let them go, or let them transform, whatever. They don't need to hold on to us, you know. And it feels cathartic every time.
It does.
It feels like we have like just a weight on our shoulders that has to get released, and it does in those moments because it gets exchanged between us and transformed between us, you know. And it ultimately, I don't think, I mean, I know I can't do that alone.
Yeah, I couldn't either. I mean, see how effective I was at that, like my past 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody needs a release. I think that's where church comes from. You know what I mean? I think that's where communion comes from. Is like this coming together and having this catharsis,
communal experience. Yeah.
Right. It's just, you know, in this day and age, it's like with
church, you have to subscribe to things that you may not want, you know.
Yeah.
But
that's what I love about what we do, is because from the beginning, we said everybody's experience, everybody's input is valuable.
Yeah.
100%.
And you don't have to believe anything. You just the only thing you have to do is treat everyone else's experience with equal value to your own.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah. And that is, there's something that being said is, you don't have to adopt my beliefs. You don't have to adopt his beliefs. You don't have to adopt anyone's beliefs.
You just gotta trust yourself.
Right.
Sounds so simple, but it's really quite difficult.
Yeah, it's the most difficult thing to do, I'd say. Well, just about an hour of us talking.
Yeah.
This went out. This smells so good, though.
You should light it.
Light it up a little bit.
Kind of cold in here.
Yeah. It's good chaga. Thank you.
I want to talk about the ritual for psychedelic integration purposes. You know,
well, match broke. Go for it. Sorry.
But yeah, like, how do you prepare and integrate a psychedelic experience? You ask a dozen people, you get a dozen different answers.
Yeah.
And I think that's how it needs to be, because everyone needs something different. Psychedelic experiences are unique. That's part of their power. You know, they're subjective.
Right.
And we should embrace that. And embrace that by creating a preparation and integration that is unique to the individual taking the experience, having the experience. And for me, this ritual that we have has been the most powerful tool for gaining insight, actionable insight, and transformative insight on my past psychedelic experiences.
Yeah, well, absolutely, I agree.
I remember in the first few weeks of our ritual, I was thinking back on that first psychedelic experience, the one I was talking about earlier, and I gained so much more clarity to the point where it was more valuable then. It had more power on my life then than it did immediately after I had the experience,
Right.
which was completely backwards thinking to what I thought.
Right.
I always thought, you got to strike while the iron's hot. The first week after a psychedelic experience, that's when you have to do everything, or else you're gonna miss the spark, miss the boat.
Well, I think generally speaking, that's true if you don't have a integrative practice.
Yeah.
Because it is a fleeting thing, the psychedelic experience.
Yeah.
It's
yeah,
it's
and
very fleeting.
an integration practice that is continuous, like never ending. It's not like, we integrate for 2 weeks and then you're on to the next thing.
Yeah, I mean, you can get some stuff done in 2 weeks, but you can get so much more if you have, the structure of a continuous, ongoing structure.
Just make it part of your life, And 2 days ago, I did 6 grams of penis envy.
So that's
More
6 grams of penis envy psilocybin.
and that was the only. I haven't done psychedelics really since we started the ritual. I mean, we took a small dose, mild dose together one time, but I have not had a high dose, and I've never had that high of a dose, 6 grams. The intention really, I had 8 months of this ritual to kind of prepare my intention. And when I talk about intention, I'm not talking about like the thought of what I want. I'm talking about ingrained into the actions of what we're doing. This is what I'm going to get. No matter if I want to or not, this is what I've created. This is what I'm going to get. And those past 8 months, a lot of times in the ritual, fear of death came up continuously. I remember the first time it came up, I think it was our 6th week, and me and you got hit with it hard. We felt, I remember looking at you and I felt just completely overwhelmed. Like I was like we were going to die, literally right there in that moment.
That was if I had to say anything on that, it's the only intentional experience of death that has been so intense, I guess. I mean, I felt like I'd already died. I felt like there was no coming back. I remember telling you, I was like, it doesn't matter, anybody in this world could come here and say it's okay, like even mom or anybody.
Yeah.
It's not going to change anything because I felt,
If you weren't going through that with me, or if I wasn't going through that with you, I think it would have shattered us, That's what I felt. I feel like I'm about to go catatonic. I'm about to just go and just to turn off.
Yeah. Yeah, but thanks for being there. You saw me, and then because I remember you saying at first you didn't really feel much, but then you saw me.
It was interesting because that we were talking about like intentions going into that, and I remember the 6th week, for the first 5 weeks, I really felt that feeling the fear was valuable. So I was like, all right, what am I most afraid of? Bring that on.
Yeah.
And I literally said, like, I want to feel death.
Yeah.
And then what I asked for.
You said that, and I said, all right, let's sink. Let's sink into what we are. And
we got what we asked for.
100% was the most intense, intentional experience of going into fear and death and all that I've ever experienced. And it's
allowing it to wash over.
Right, exactly. It's so cathartic.
Yeah. But
scary too, man. I came out of that.
Yeah.
I came out of that ritual more scared than I've come out of any other ritual.
Yeah.
And
even the next day, we were both shook.
Oh yeah.
Even our dad was shook, and he didn't even feel it.
I think he felt it. I think he didn't feel it quite the extent that we did. But I looked at him, and it looked like I thought he was going to throw up. I swear to God, I really, I think he was right there.
Yeah, I believe it. And I mean, that was so I mean, I don't think I could have gone through the penis envy experience, the 6 grams, without any of this past. I needed it all because that's ultimately what I wanted out of the 6 gram experience. I wanted the heroic dose where I experienced death,
Yeah.
Like I was reading so much about the Eleusinian mysteries, like the book, The Immortality Key, that brilliant book by the author
Brian Murarescu.
Murarescu, yeah. He wrote this incredible book, and it's about the Eleusinian mysteries and how the mysteries of Eleusis were actually, it was a psychedelic experience or a ritualized experience to bring on death, so that you could confront death, and then you could live life more fully. You know, the thing that was holding me back was this fear of death.
Yeah. Right. It seems so counterintuitive to our modern day society, our westernized civilization.
I mean, I was always conditioned to believe that you don't have to worry about death because it's not going to happen to you until you're like 80, so just forget about it. But that doesn't really work, because the anxiety is still kicking around and affecting everything you do throughout your life.
Exactly.
If you don't deal with it.
It's a self-perpetuating cycle, because then you are 80, and then you're like, okay, now I can feel it, and it's the most overwhelming, and you're already 80. Why not feel that when you're young? Yeah. Really feel that, really
when you can use that,
express that, and then use that to motivate your life.
Exactly.
And I've heard that in a lot of different like pop culture or like art and stuff, but I don't think we really practice that.
Well, that was one thing that I came to learn through our ritual practice. Really come to learn and believe it 100%. But believing it 100%, I can't have full faith in it unless I do it. And so, I mean, I had no intention to do a high dose experience, because my life was better than it's ever been. Yeah. Right now, like, I literally said I was going to do a high dose around Thanksgiving, and I was nervous and I was afraid, and I ended up not doing it because I talked to people and talked to my family, and I was like, my life is better than I could have ever imagined it. Why risk it? And it took me a couple weeks later to realize that when your life is when you don't want anything to change, that is the perfect time to do it. It sounds counterintuitive, but when everything is just like right, then I can trust it. Then I can go into it fully.
Right. Like, that's when you need perspective the most, almost. Or
that's when you just, but I mean, that's when I can trust
right.
in the faith that I've cultivated, that we've cultivated over the past 8 weeks, the faith of feeling the fear, confronting these feelings, allowing them in,
Yeah, I mean, it's
everything in my life up to that point showed me that this is true, this is real, and I believe it. And now it's up to me. Ultimately, you have to go in the end, go in alone,
Right, yeah. So what was it like? I mean, the 6 grams. I mean, 6 grams is an extremely large dose of psilocybin. I mean, it's a hero's dose. A heroic dose is 5 grams.
Yeah.
Let
me just give you a rundown of what it was like,
For
best
sure.
I could.
Yeah.
But I wake up at 3 a.m. I take a really cold shower because I've been loving the cold showers. I go over to your guys' house, and I get in my old bedroom, and it's like 3:30 in the morning, and I'm in darkness.
And you've already taken a cold shower?
Taking a cold shower. I brewed some chaga tea just in case, and I sat there and I munched down. It was 2 mushrooms that were about like this big. One mushroom was like 3.5 grams. The other mushroom was like 2 grams and 2.5. I don't know, but ultimately it was about 6 grams. And I ate them and sat in bed and just focused on my breathing for like 2 hours. And I was doing a lot of variations on Wim Hof breathing,
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't feel much, I was like, this isn't very intense. I almost thought about going to get more.
Wow.
But around like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, it started hitting me really hard, to the point where, I mean, it's hard to talk about, but Like, I was feeling it was the most intense thing in my life, and it was also the most just perfect thing. In the 2 hours on the come up, the only thing, not the only thing, but the main thing I felt throughout of it was accept it. Whatever comes up, just accept it, because it's what you need. And that's what it's all been about for me. Mm-hmm. Accepting the moment. If I can truly have faith in the moment, then no matter where this takes me, I will be okay. And I don't have to think about it. I don't have to control anything. I just have to be there, you know? And it took me on some weird places, man. Like, like it took me to like, I mean, I talked about this yesterday in our ritual, but seeing patterns, like life as just a pattern, like a Fibonacci sequence that's just never ending and infinite. Feeling that for an extended period of time is enough to make you insane. Mm-hmm. Like, I literally, it makes you question if you should just go get a gun and kill yourself. Mm-hmm. Like, truly. And it's terrifying. Mm-hmm. But I still had that feeling of just trust this and accept it, you know, and just let it go, be in it, you know. And ultimately what I think I was experiencing was death in a way. But the only reason it was hellish was because I was still separate from it, watching it. If I was in it, it's a beautiful masterpiece. But being separate and watching it, it's exhausting. Like, it makes me grateful that I have what I have now, this life, you know, where it's tailored. Like, my life is tailored perfectly for me. And, man, that trip just went perfectly. Couldn't have designed it any better. Because everything that came up, I believed in. And, I mean, when I talk about like my fear of death, one thing I came away from that experience believing 100% is that when my time to die comes, I will welcome it. And I believe that. But right now, like, life is so beautiful. So, like, I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Now I feel like I don't have to worry about that. Whereas before I felt like I was constantly worrying about
it. Right. That's similar to the ayahuasca for me.